What up, everyone? Larry Legend, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how I met my wife. Kind of, the backstory on how we met, how we kind of got married, and where we are today. So, I met my wife at a summer campground. Now, it's not a summer campground like you normally think of. It wasn't where there's just a bunch of kids and counselors. It was more of a family campground, a family get together, something like that. Now, my family had been there for, I think it was 2 years prior to actually meeting my wife, and I was 14 or 15 at the time. So yeah, this goes back a ways considering I'm 27 years old. So we're at this campground, and I was 14, 15-year-old kid running around doing all the little punk stuff you do as a teenager. And I remember one day there was it's kind of like a big to-do if there's a new family or a new group of people that are coming in. And there was this new family that was actually moving into one of the campground sites. And these aren't like normal campground sites with tents and campfires. They're basically almost like, I don't know, it's like trailers, permanent trailers attached to, that they have porches built onto them. So it was actually a pretty awesome time. This campground was located in Massachusetts at a little campground that's no longer there at Welsh's Grove. It was on a little lake, so it was perfect for the summertime. And anyways, this new family had moved in, and I think my father had met the lady that was moving in and her husband or something like that. And they had a daughter that was about my age. And, I noticed, I went up and said hi or whatever. No big deal. And then I think it was, maybe a couple weeks later that the daughter had brought a friend out. And this friend happened to be a gorgeous young woman that got my righteous hormones in a rage. So I went up and introduced myself, and it was cool. She seemed like she was a pretty cool chick. And that was kind of that. I was a little hesitant, didn't know really what to do at the time. And we got to know each other and had fun. We played volleyball or went swimming or did whatever. And I remember we used to play, I don't know if you guys know, game basically called Suicide. And you have a tennis ball, and you have a bunch of, people that basically run back and forth between two bags. They're usually about 60 feet apart, and you have two people that are on the one on one bag and one on the other. And all you're trying to do is peg the person that's running in between them. You want to try to tag them out or peg them with a tennis ball, and you just do that back and forth over and over. And I remember watching this girl. She was playing softball. She played softball for her high school. And I came out one morning, and her friend Jess were, just playing catch, throwing back and forth. And, I always found it cool if a girl played sports or something like that, or was competitive. And that's what this girl was. So I stayed out there in the morning, and my dad's drinking a cup of coffee. And it's kind of a funny little backstory, but anyways, we're standing out there watching them play catch or whatever, and my dad says to me, he goes, see that girl right there? Talking about my future wife that he didn't know at the time. He's like, see a girl like that? That's a girl that you need to marry. And I don't remember why that topic came up at that particular time, but it's pretty funny considering when I got married, which was pretty young. I was 19 years old. He was pretty pissed at me just because I was so young and, didn't want to see me, quote unquote, I don't want to say throw my life away, but, not have a lot of experiences or be relegated to, a relationship when, I was just joining the military and could travel the world and do whatever. But anyway, so that's kind of where we met. And we started dating eventually, and, things got all hot and heavy, holding hands and kissing and all that stuff. And my parents divorced. And when they divorced, my mother me and my two brothers, we all moved down to Connecticut. And my girlfriend at the time was in Massachusetts. And I didn't have a car. She didn't have a car. And it's pretty hard to do a long-distance relationship at 16 years old, 17 years old, when neither of you have vehicles. And you see each other, you know, once a month, if that. So I remember, I guess I was the one that broke it off. And that was a pretty uncomfortable phone call. And one of the other reasons I thought that is I didn't think I'd be going back up to Massachusetts at any point in the near future. Well, it just so happens that the next summer, so this is basically about 6 months, 7 months later after we had broken up, I ended up going back to the campground. And it was my first time back there, so seeing a bunch of friends that I hadn't seen, you know, all year long. And I noticed her walking hand in hand with another young gentleman. And that kind of pissed me off. I was like, really? You know, kind of got some jealous rage going on, and, you know, whatever it was, but it started actually making me think. And it really bothered me for, you know, about a week that I was there. I was stuck at the campground, and it sucked because she's dating this other guy, you know, that was at the campground. That he was a good guy. He wasn't a bad guy or anything like that, but he was instantly my mortal enemy. So it really did make me think, did I want to try to do this long-distance relationship thing again? You know, where was it going to take us? But, yep, this guy's got game. Stole the girl from kind of his, yeah, I guess he was kind of my friend, but hey, she was mine first, so I took her back. That's how I roll. It was something like that. She ultimately, you know, was able to make the choice, and I think for her it was the right choice because I'm pretty awesome and I have a pretty big penis. So, so that's kind of how we got back together. And we dated, had a long-distance relationship all the way through, you know, the rest of high school. My high school, she was my high school sweetheart. And once I graduated high school, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with my life. I knew I wasn't going to go to college because that would have been a failure. My senior year in high school, all I did was party. You know, I quit playing varsity sports and didn't really try too hard on my grades. I mean, I got A's and B's, but, you know, I didn't make a valiant effort to try to prepare for college or anything like that. Because, A, my parents didn't have the money to pay for me to go to school, and I really didn't want to work hard enough to get awesome grades to get into a decent college. So, with that said, graduated high school, didn't know what I was going to do with my life. You know, we tried to have her move down and stay with me, but my mom was not having that. Like, my mom's the coolest person ever. Like, really, she's so awesome. That was like the one time that I was like completely surprised. Like, I figured she'd have no problem with us living together. Yeah, completely wrong. Completely wrong. So I ended up moving up to Massachusetts and living with her and her family. And I did that for about a year. And then I was doing construction, painting, stuff like that. And September 11th happened. And it was at that point that I made a decision that, you know, I was going to join the military, not only to serve my country, but in a selfish sense, because, you know, joining the military is going to give me the route to, you know, basically a free education, a good job, good experience, stuff like that. So that's what I did. Joined the military. My school lasted about 9 months. So I saw her about 3 times between those 9 months, but we had kind of talked about it before I left for boot camp. And while I was away, you know, at boot camp and at school, we talked about getting married. And that's what we did. August 10th, oh boy, 2003, we got married. I was 19 years old. Yeah, 19 years old, almost 20 years old. And we got married. And that's funny because I remember calling my dad and, you know, letting him know, like, hey, you know, we got engaged. And he was livid, and he was especially livid when I told him, hey, you remember when I was 16 and you said, you know, that was a girl like that is who I need to marry? He was like, yeah, I know I said that, but I didn't mean 2 years from now. So we got married. I've been in the military ever since. We've been married ever since. We have our bumps and our bruises, our rocky roads, but all in all, we have a great time. We still love each other as much as we did when we were 16 with puppy love, and now we've got a little 2.5-year-old monster running around. I don't know if you could hear him running around in the background there, but that's my story, and that's how I met my wife. Hope you guys liked it.